The house dragged my friend inside while he was telling a joke. The last time I saw Zev, he was being pulled into the mouth of a dead house. Out past the county line, where the cell signal dies and the pavement crumbles back to dirt, sits the old Halloway place. It's not just abandoned, it's being digested by the woods. The trees have moved in close, their branches scraping the collapsed roof like skeletal fingers. The porch is a death trap of rotted boards, and every broken window looks like a vacant eye socket. For us, it was freedom. It was our spot. No parents, no cops, just the freedom to be stupid teenagers with cheap vodka and a shared Bluetooth speaker. We'd had a dozen parties there. We knew its groans and settling sounds. We thought we owned its shadows. We even had to deal with the occasional pair of old-timers on ATVs, shotguns resting on their laps, telling us to get off their hunting grounds. We'd just scatter, laugh about it, and come back the next week. We were invincible. We thought the worst thing that could happen out there was getting caught. That last Friday started like any other. I was the one who put the word out. The usual signal. A cryptic message in the group chat. Halloway House. Sundown. Bring a sacrifice for the gods of bad decisions. By 10 o'clock, a dozen of us were gathered at the turnoff, our faces lit by the glow of our phones. There was Anja, my closest friend, already shivering even though the autumn air was mild. A few new faces I didn't recognize. And Zev. Zev was our ringleader, our court jester, our goddamn fearless leader. He had a laugh that could start a riot and a grin that said he'd try anything once. He showed up with a half-empty bottle of his dad's bourbon and an unshakable energy that infected all of us. The walk-in felt different that night. The path, usually just a mile of packed earth, felt longer. The woods were too quiet. Usually you'd hear crickets, an owl, something. But that night, the only sound was our own nervous laughter and the crunch of dead leaves under our sneakers. "Feels weird out here tonight," Anja whispered, her shoulder bumping against mine. "It's just the dark," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. When we finally broke through the tree line, the house was just a black silhouette against the starless sky. It looked hungry. The front door was a perfect gaping rectangle of pure void. Zev, of course, was the first to break the spell. He let out a whoop and sprinted across the overgrown yard, leaping onto the rickety porch with a reckless grace that was all his own. He spun around to face us, raising the bourbon bottle like a trophy. "Friends. Freaks fellow degenerates," he boomed, his voice echoing in the dead air. "Tonight, we make a memory. Tonight, we are the only ghosts that haunt this shithole. We live forever and we leave noth." He stopped. His voice didn't trail off. It just cut out, like someone snipped a wire. From the absolute black of the doorway, two things unspooled. They weren't arms. They were too long, too thin, the color of bleached bone or peeling birch bark. They moved without a sound, impossibly fast. They didn't grab him. They wrapped around his head, the long, twig-like fingers sinking into his face, and then they just retracted. He was gone. There was no scream, no struggle. Just a single, soft pop, and Zev was erased from the porch. The only thing left was one of his scuffed-up sneakers, lying on its side. We all stood there, frozen. A statue garden of horrified teenagers. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. It pressed in on us, heavy and suffocating. 5 seconds. 10. An eternity. Anja made a tiny, choked sound, a question with his name on the end of it. That's what broke the spell. The house answered her. A single, thick jet of something dark and heavy shot out from the doorway. It wasn't a spray. It was a pressurized rope of fluid that arcs through the air and hit the exact spot where Zev had been standing. The sound it made wasn't a splash. It was a wet, percussive smack, like a side of beef hitting a concrete floor. Then came the smell. Hot, coppery, and sour. The smell of a slaughterhouse. That's when we ran. There was no thought, no plan, just pure animal panic. The trail didn't matter. We crashed through the undergrowth, branches whipping our faces, thorns tearing at our clothes. Someone fell behind me, and I didn't even look back. I just kept running. All I could hear was my own ragged breathing and the frantic, crashing sounds of my friends scattering into the night. I found Anja's hand in the dark and we just pulled each other forward, stumbling and sobbing our way back toward the distant promise of the road. We all made it out, somehow. We spilled onto the asphalt, a mess of scratched, crying, hyperventilating kids. Nobody wanted to talk. Nobody knew what to say. We just went home. The image of that dark doorway and the sound of that wet impact burned behind our eyes. The next day, Zev's parents reported him missing. The police called every single one of us. We all sat in sterile interrogation rooms one by one and told them the same impossible story. Something in the house took him. They didn't believe us. They thought it was a prank or a drug deal gone wrong, or that we were all covering for a fight that got out of hand. They searched the Halloway place, of course. They found the blood. A lot of it soaked deep into the rotting porch wood. The forensics team came back with inconclusive results. It was blood, they said, but degraded, and they couldn't get a clean DNA profile. They brought in K9 units. The dogs went crazy at the edge of the property, barking and whining, the hair on their backs standing straight up. But not a single one would set foot in the yard. They just sniffed the bloodstain on the porch from a distance, tucked their tails and refused to go any further. No trail, no scent. It was like Zev had simply ceased to exist right there on that porch. His missing posters stayed up for years, plastered on telephone poles and in store windows. They're mostly gone now, faded by the sun or peeled away by the rain. But we remember. The dozen of us who were there that night, we know he's not missing. We know he's not coming back. The Halloway house was hungry, and we brought it to sacrifice. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I think about his last word. The one he never got to finish. Nothing. He was going to say we leave nothing behind. He was wrong. We left his shoe. And that house, it left a piece of its darkness inside every single one of us. A piece that whispers in the dead of night that some doors are better left unopened.